Congress votes to force the release of the Epstein files. Trump welcomes the Saudi crown prince to the White House, and Nicki Minaj speaks at the UN. I'm Daily Wire executive editor John Bickley with Georgia Howe. It's Tuesday, November 18th. This is Evening Wire.
The House passed the bill 427-1 to force the Department of Justice to release its files on Jeffrey Epstein. Republican Clay Higgins of Louisiana was the only no vote on the bill. The Senate passed the measure unanimously. It now heads to the president's desk, where he's expected to sign it.
One House Democrat pushing for the release of the Epstein files has teased the contents as shocking. Representative Ro Khanna of California spoke to the New York Post yesterday. Here's what he had to say.
This is one of the most disgusting, outrageous corruption scandals. I want to know why some of these people still have universities named after them, why they still have scholarships named after them, why they are still in positions of power. There needs to be a reckoning in this country. When those files come out, it's going to shock the conscience of this country.
After the release of emails and texts between him and Jeffrey Epstein, former Clinton and Obama administration official Larry Summers said Monday that he plans to pull back from his public commitments, but he's going to continue to teach at Harvard. The former Treasury Secretary exchanged messages with Epstein long after he pled guilty to sex crimes back in 2008. The messages show the two had a close relationship as late as 2019, with Summers even asking for relationship advice and criticizing Donald Trump. Summers told the New York Post he is deeply ashamed of his exchanges with Epstein.
President Trump welcomed Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to the White House for the prince's first visit in more than 7 years. Daily Wire White House correspondent Mary Margaret Olahan has the story.
During the meeting, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman committed to increasing planned investments with the U.S. to almost $1 trillion over the next year. The visit, which tightens ties between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, is momentous since this country had been largely shunned by President Joe Biden's administration after the 2018 killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The Crown Prince was greeted with a military honor guard, a cannon salute, and even a flyover from U.S. warplanes. The meeting comes amid President Trump's series of high-stakes meetings with the leaders of foreign countries on everything from trade to military tensions to protecting religious rights.
As new claims emerge about the man who shot President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says Americans ought to have the full story. Here's Leavitt speaking with Miranda Devine on Pod Force One.
There are so many questions out there. And, did he act alone, et cetera? And it's over a year. It's 16 months now.
For sure. Those questions are definitely deserving of answers. And I understand why the public wants those answers. And I believe the president does too.
And so why don't we have them?
It's a good question. And it's one I'd like to see the answer to. And I think all Americans would.
A leaked town hall video from America's top medical education group is raising new questions about their political reach. Footage obtained by the Daily Wire shows senior leaders at the Association of American Medical Colleges vowing to fight federal and state efforts to restrict transgender medical practices.
It's easy to say we're very concerned, but we are very concerned about this. We have a lot of work to do in this area, and it's definitely a high priority for us.
The AAMC, which oversees the MCAT and influences nearly every U.S. medical school, has joined a series of legal challenges defending puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for minors. Critics say the group has drifted into activism and away from science, even as it rebrands its DEI programs amid public pressure.
Pennsylvania issued a trucking license to an illegal immigrant on a terror watch list. Daily Wire immigration reporter Jenny Terr has the story.
Local authorities pulled over Uzbek national Akrar Bazarov while he was driving an 18-wheeler and discovered an Interpol warrant for alleged terrorist activity, including distributing jihadist propaganda and recruiting terrorists. ICE took Bazarov into custody. Bazarov crossed the California border illegally in 2023 when the Biden administration was pushing Border Patrol to move people out of custody as quickly as possible. Sources told the Daily Wire that border agents didn't find any such red flags at the time because they didn't have enough time to properly vet him.
In other immigration news, at least 140 illegal aliens were arrested in a raid on a human smuggling and sex trafficking operation on Sunday. Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced the results of the raid yesterday. Authorities took into custody foreign nationals from Central and South America, including migrants from Honduras, Mexico, and Venezuela. Some of those arrested had ties to notorious drug cartels and gangs such as Tren de Aragua.
A California district attorney is concerned about public safety after a judge's decision to set loose a second murder suspect. Judge Hector Ramon has now released 2 men charged with the June 2024 murder of a 21-year-old without requiring any bail. Santa Clara County District Attorney Jeff Rosen told Fox News Digital that it was bad enough that an accused murderer with a violent past was let out of custody. Now there are 2. The odds of reoffense or fleeing from justice just doubled. People's lives ride on those odds.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul is expected to announce the closure of a state prison as the correctional system continues to grapple with severe staffing shortages. Daily Wire reporter Amanda Prestigiacomo has more.
The state budget passed earlier this year authorized the shutdown of up to 3 facilities, including the Bear Hill Correctional Facility in Franklin County, which will now move forward. New York's prisons have been strained by persistent understaffing, a problem that was only intensified by a correctional officer strike earlier this year that led to roughly 2,000 dismissals. The system is currently short more than 4,000 employees, prompting officials to deploy National Guard troops to help maintain operations. While the closure is intended to consolidate staff and ease pressure on the workforce, state officials warn that it may actually worsen overcrowding and stretch already limited resources across the remaining facilities.
A slate of major online platforms went down temporarily on Tuesday morning after trouble at an IT services company. The outage affected sites such as X, Spotify, and ChatGPT, and issues lasted for several hours. The problem stemmed from an issue at Cloudflare, an American company that offers security and web tracking services for websites. Cloudflare spokeswoman Jackie Dutton said the outage came from, quote, a configuration file that is automatically generated to manage threat traffic. She continued saying there is no evidence of a cyber attack, only that the generating file grew so large it triggered a crash in the software system that handles traffic for a number of Cloudflare's services. The issue was resolved after several hours.
25 schoolgirls were abducted at gunpoint from a boarding school in northwest Nigeria this morning. Daily Wire senior editor Virginia Kruta has more.
The incident is just the latest in a years-long pattern, and hundreds of children remain missing from similar crimes over the past decade. The assailants exchanged gunfire with local police officers before scaling the school's perimeter fence and carrying out the mass abduction. Police and soldiers are now attempting to track the perpetrators through suspected escape corridors and forested areas. The incident is just the latest mass kidnapping in Nigeria's northwest, where armed criminal gangs, often referred to locally as bandits, have repeatedly targeted schools for ransom.
Nicki Minaj spoke at the United Nations today on the topic of Christian persecution. Alongside UN Ambassador Mike Walls, the rapper outlined the actions President Trump and his administration are taking to stop the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. Here's Minaj.
I want to be clear. Protecting Christians in Nigeria is not about taking sides or dividing people. It is about uniting humanity. I am joined here today by peace builders, by faith leaders, by those who saw violence, saw rising intolerance, saw the threats clearly before us, and chose not to look the other way. I am inspired by their work to build interfaith ties, to see the humanity across the lines which might divide us, and to fight for security and liberty for all those who pray.
According to the International Society of Civil Liberties and Rule of Law, 7,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria in 2025 alone. And high school girls are now less interested in marriage than their male counterparts. For more on the data, we spoke with Communio founder J.P. DeGance.
New Pew polling data on 12th graders reveals that the storybook Happily Ever After ending is not on the priority list for a growing number of young women today. Back in 1993, 83% of graduating high school senior girls said they were very likely to choose to get married. Today, that number has plummeted to just 61%. Boys' interest in marriage has largely remained unchanged and is at 74% today. The declining interest in marriage for high school girls is really bad news for those concerned about happiness, loneliness, and shortening lifespans. Research continues to show the happiest, least lonely, and longest living people are married people. In a healthy society, men and women in different ways depend on one another. While we work to get this right as parents, we should also get back to sharing stories that include that happily ever after ending once again.
All right, those are your drive home updates. To learn more about these stories, go to dailywire.com. And in case you missed it this morning, we covered some major stories, including the House vote on the Epstein files, new claims about the man who shot President Trump, and the U.S. and Venezuela signaling a willingness to talk. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another full edition of Morning Wire.